All right, Ken Paxton has officially defeated, as I had predicted, has officially defeated John Cornyn, so now he's got to face the tougher opponent. Yes, James Talarico is a tougher opponent for Ken Paxton than John Cornyn was. James Talarico has a couple things going for him, okay? He's got, one polling component that I'll get to here in a second. He is leading in the polls currently, but as I've said many times, polls don't matter. But there are specifics within the polls that we have to discuss, and I'll get to that here in a second. But number two, he was able to raise in the first quarter, he raised $27 million. Compare that to Paxton, who could only raise $2.2 million. That's a 12x gap. That's huge, and that's a problem because money can buy you a whole lot of airtime, and a whole lot of airtime can be used on attack ads against Paxton, put him on the defensive, have him talking about that, instead of what he should be talking about, which is James Talarico's weaknesses. And there's a stat. I'm going to pull up this article we have over at conservativeplaylist.com. Here it is. Let's see. And I do encourage you to read the whole article. Great stuff by Alexis Williamson. But here's the stat. Here's the important part. Talarico's margin against Paxton amongst black voters is 56%. Amongst Latinos, he is up 27%. Now, I'm going to play a clip here in a minute of Ken Paxton's victory speech after winning the primary runoff. I'll go ahead and cut to the chase. He made one mistake. All of it was good, except he made one mistake. He started associating James Talarico with being a puppet for Chuck Schumer. That plays in some races. It's not going to play in this race. Folks, there's the need here, the way that Ken Paxton wins, other than, and we'll get to the other components of the article here in a second, but to me, it comes down to one thing and one thing only. You've got to get a good chunk of the black and the Latino vote back on your side, and the way to do that is through faith. That's it. That's the easy ticket. There's an easy button here. James Talarico is not Beto O'Rourke. He's going to appeal to people in ways that are very different from Beto O'Rourke did. And that's why he is the most dangerous statewide Democrat to run in 3 decades. But it can be countered by focusing on the faith aspect of it. This is a guy who went to seminary. He's allegedly a pastor. But he's a counterfeit Christian. That's what he is. He goes out there and says that God is non-binary, that there are 6 sexes, that his favorite people in the world outside of his family, the people that he loves the most, are trans kids, which that's all sorts of weird. Okay? Weird stuff there, Talarico. But hey, it is what it is. That's what we've got to focus on. For both the Latino vote and the black vote, focus on those, on the faith aspect of it. He's perverting the word of God, and he's promoting LGBTQIA plus supremacy. You take those 2 issues, you hammer them. You maybe sprinkle in a little bit of the whole vegan thing. It's Texas, come on. Sprinkle in a little vegan, but focus on counterfeit Christian, perverting the Bible, heresy, pro-trans, pro-LGBTQIA plus. That is how you reverse at least some of the numbers, enough to win. Let's reverse some of the numbers for black and Latino voters. Now let's look at the rest of that's my take. Let's look at Alexis Williamson's take. She did what I think is a very good job. The article's titled, "The Paxton Playbook, How to Beat a Counterfeit Christian Before $27 Million Buys His Halo." And I assure you, he's going to raise a lot more than that. California, New York, all the donors from the coast, they're going to be pouring money into this because they can smell blood. They think, oh my gosh, Ken Paxton's so weak. He's got so many scandals. James Talarico is so lovable. He's adorable. He's a vegan. Anyway, I'm over it. Okay, I'm not going to mention the vegan aspect again. But just one last time, if a vegan can win a statewide election in Texas, we are in the end times. We are in the end times. All right, back to the article. Let's go to the bullet points. Ken Paxton defeated incumbent John Cornyn by 16 points Tuesday. Nominee James Talarico outraised him $27 million to $2.2 million in the first quarter. April polling has Talarico leading Paxton 42-34. Again, polling doesn't matter, especially at this early stage, but it's worth noting at least a little bit. Talarico has declared on record that God is non-binary, that creation has to be done with consent. In other words, and by using the Virgin Mary as his justification, he claims that abortion is moral and biblical. It's the same truth. That's what he says Christianity is, the same truth as other religions. These are points, folks. Again, I keep going back to it. These are points that must be hammered home. But let's keep going. His political record includes headlining a Stop ICE rally. Look, that's not going to play. I'll go ahead and just say that up front. Don't even worry about ICE. Okay? Again, don't worry about the border at all. This isn't an issue for a Senate race. Okay? President Trump and ICE, they do what they do. They've done what they've done. They've been doing an excellent job. Customs and Border Protection, excellent job. Texas being an epicenter, but people are starting to feel secure about that. So don't make it an issue. Okay? I mean, James Talarico, if he wins, he's not going to suddenly open the borders as a U.S. Senator. He can't. The U.S. Senate has done absolutely nothing to the border. It's been 100% Trump. And to be fair, the state of Texas itself has done quite a bit too. But yeah, what John Cornyn contributed, Ted Cruz contributed, James Talarico is going to reverse it all. Ken Paxton is going to keep it going. Nothing. Senate, as far as the board is concerned, Senate is irrelevant. Talarico is now repackaging himself as a moderate, describing the southern border as a front porch with a giant welcome mat. And he said, to be fair, it's not noted here, but he said a locked front porch. He's trying to say, look, we can still be welcoming to all of the Latinos and all the migrants, illegal aliens, but we just need to keep the door locked and let them in as we want to let them in. It's again, he's just hedging. It doesn't really matter. He's just trying to raise that 27% lead amongst Latino voters. He's just trying to get that number up by hedging a bit on the whole border thing. He doesn't want to turn off all the white voters. Anyway, the Paxton path forward requires uniting the GOP immediately, building a small dollar fundraising, dominating long-form media, organizing through Hispanic and Black congregations, and confronting the 2023 impeachment directly. That last portion, we'll get to that. I'm going to cut past this. I know I'm spoiling it now. People aren't going to read the article, but you should at conservativeplaylist.com. You should check it out. But here's what Alexis Williamson says are the 5 priorities. Okay. First, unite the GOP immediately. The primary was bitter. Cornyn voters are real people with real grievances. I know there's not a whole lot of them, but they do exist. Greg Abbott and President Trump on the same stage with Ted Cruz and Cornyn. He needs all 4 of them, apparently. Get all 4 of them on the same stage within 14 days. I like that. Let's unite now. Get it, and don't forget, we're trying to get ahead of the expenditure. Ken Paxton's got to raise a ton of money. Talarico already has, and he's going to start hitting Ken Paxton immediately. I think he positioned. He said, he positioned it like a court case. It was actually pretty clever. They're positioning the early stages of the Talarico versus Paxton race as, I think it's the U.S. citizens or America versus Ken Paxton. It's, again, trying to make it like it's a trial. Yeah, we got to get all that done as quickly as possible before the $27 million starts to pay dividends for Talarico. Because if we don't get out there, get ahead of this as quickly as possible, then Paxton's going to be on the defensive early on and may stay on the defensive the whole time. It's possible. Second, idea number 2, build the small dollar machine. Talarico's bragged that 98% of his donations are $100 or less, and that he refuses corporate PAC money. That is a populist narrative Paxton can match and exceed. MAGA donors do not need to be persuaded that his seat matters. They need a clear, repeated ask and a list that lives outside the National Republican Senatorial Committee's bureaucracy. In other words, the Mitch McConnell Fund. Can't be tapping into that. Trump's small donor infrastructure is the template, and Paxton's MAGA warrior brand is the natural sales pitch. How do you raise money? Trump. That's it. That is it. Third, dominate earned media on long-form platforms. For those who don't know, earned media, that's where you're not buying ad space. You're getting out there and being interviewed. By the way, just saying, I'm just saying, I have invited Ken Paxton to come to my show. So Did that through X. We follow each other on X. I've never actually communicated with him. I thought that was odd. I figured at least some point over the years I would have talked to him, but I've not. So anyone out there who knows him, let him know. Send him this video. Let him know. I want to talk to him. I want to help him. I want to help him win. So dominate earned media on long-form platforms by coming on the J.D. Rucker Show or other ways. Talarico's rise was built on Rogan, which he actually did okay on. Said some pretty crazy things, but he did okay. Colbert and Ezra Klein. Paxton should not cede that terrain. He has a 100 lawsuit record against the Biden administration with an 80% win rate, a record of defending the Heartbeat Act and the Human Life Protection Act, a record of fighting to keep concertina wire on the Rio Grande. If you don't look it up, okay, that stuff's sick. Whew. A record of busting illegal ballot harvesting schemes, a record of forcing border wall constructions to resume. He's got a great record. As Attorney General, he can do even more as a U.S. Senator, and Lord willing, that's exactly what will happen. None of that translates through a 30-second cable buy. In other words, you can't advertise that very easily in 30-second clips. You need long form. You need to come on the J.D. Rucker Show. Go on Rogan. Go wherever. Go everywhere. None of that translates through third-party cable buys. It translates through 2 hours with a serious host, where Paxton can also let Talarico's own words be played back unedited. And I will be happy to have clip after clip after clip after clip after clip of James Talarico being a moron, being I don't want to, let's be careful there, a counterfeit Christian, just being a bad guy in general. Number 4, organize church to church. Again, going back to my strategy, this is the part that I like. Texas has more evangelical and Hispanic Catholic congregations than any state in the union. A field operation that puts Talarico's sermons and floor speeches in front of pastors and lay leaders in English and Spanish is worth more than $100 million of network television. In other words, tell the congregations through the pastors that Talarico is evil. He is the spawn of Satan. He is trying to make Texas LGBTQI plus haven. He's trying to make it all sorts of non-binary, including God Almighty. He's trying to make it vegan. I don't think okay. Enough of the vegan stuff. The receipts do the work. No one needs to be told what to think after watching the Joe Rogan clip on the Annunciation. Yes, he literally said that because Mary had to give permission to be impregnated, that means that abortion is a biblical concept. Hammer that home, folks. Hammer that home, Ken. Hammer that home, Ken's fans, Ken's team, Ken's supporting PACs. Hammer that home, especially with the Latino and the black voters. They care about these things. They truly care. And I'm not trying to generalize here, but you're going to get more mileage out of an evangelical message at a black church or a Hispanic church than anywhere else. This is, again, if you do nothing else on this list, just take my advice and hit Talarico as a counterfeit Christian. 5th, address the impeachment directly and bury it. I like this. The Texas Senate acquitted Paxton on every count in 2023. The case was driven by disgruntled former staff and partisan legislators, many of whom are gone, by the way. And Texas Republican voters punished the impeachment in subsequent primaries. As I said, Paxton should say it once clearly with the receipts and pivot every subsequent attempt to relitigate it back to the question Texans care about in 2026, which is who will fight for the border, we'll see, the unborn, and the Constitution. The Democrats will run the impeachment ads anyway, so why not just address it up front, get it over with, and say, I've already talked about it. You refer to this. Refer to me answering this question on the J.D. Rucker Show back in early June. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. The only choice is whether voters first hear about it from Paxton on his terms or with the $27 million spend. And again, it's going to be more than that. Talarico's going to get a lot of money from the East Coast, from the West Coast. The Democrats, they know this is their best chance in decades. They know that Talarico is a potentially good candidate. Now, we can reverse that very quickly. All we have to do is expose Talarico with his own words, his own perspectives. The more the Texans learn about James Talarico, the less likely they are to vote for him, especially if they're Christians. And I think 2/3 of Texas identifies as Christian. We need to reach all 2/3 of those people. We need to explain to them who Talarico is, what he's going to do to girls and women's sports and bathrooms, what he's going to do to the Bible. I mean, this guy is ready to make Texas cursed. And I, for one, and I believe Ken Paxton would agree with me, that we want Texas and the United States of America to be blessed.
Well, that's an interesting point. What are you, a monk?